General, your name is mentioned in these documents. You've been on our program for years. You've been writing books. You've been crying out from the wilderness about what they did to you. What a remarkable moment. And the floor is yours. The landscape has been set. General, what do you see happening next?
Yeah, well, a couple of things. I have made this recommendation that I think that all of these people that are involved, starting with Obama on down, they all ought to have their passports revoked. And people don't need to be checking private airplanes and private airfields for anybody trying to abscond the country and get the heck out of Dodge here. So that's number one. I do think that just as was done to President Trump when they raided his home at Mar-a-Lago, because they thought that there was, and they planted evidence there in that case. But I do think that what the DOJ should be considering, if not getting ready to conduct, is a raid of Barack Obama's home up there at Kalorama in Washington, D.C., where he's been since he physically left the White House. He's been running the White House, all during the Biden regime. And I do think that there's some other places that need to be raided where there are likely, a lot of evidence, a lot of receipts, so to speak, in many of these people that are part of the Obama White House, as well as the Biden White House. I mean, I just heard the great David Schoen talking about the former Deputy Attorney General of Monaco, who also was the Homeland Security Advisor to Barack Obama. So that's number one. Those are things that need to be considered right now. And I was ready to wake up this morning to hear about some of these raids that should have been going on. There should, as a minimum, be a task force assembled by of federal law enforcement authorities, as well as a assigned, dedicated, prosecutor at the DOJ level, at the Attorney General level, someone who is working directly for her and for the President of the United States. This has got to happen very quickly. The other thing that I want people to remind people to look back upon, because part of my problem was Mike Pence, Mike Pence, former Vice President Mike Pence, and a couple of questions that I asked you, I think, over the last couple of days, Benny, that we need to remind ourselves during those first 2 years of Trump 45, we had the Republican, majority in the House, Speaker Ryan, and in the Senate, President McConnell, right? I mean, the president of the Senate. Mm-hmm. So those two also sat on what's called the Gang of Eight, which is a group of 8 people inside of the Congress that get evidence on, get intelligence briefings on every single thing that's going on in the country. So my assumption at this point in time, I don't know, for a fact, but I got to believe because what Devin Nunes did in the March-April timeframe of 2017 was he came forward to the White House and said, hey, this is all fake. This is all fake. And Devin was then sidelined by Speaker Ryan from the House Select Committee on Intelligence. He was the chairman at the time. So there's some GOP dirt here that has got to be looked at, because the American people have lost so much trust in all of the institutions of government. One of the things that Barack Obama did, he didn't just weaponize intelligence and weaponize the justice system. He weaponized the entirety of the government. And then he went in and weaponized elements of other institutions, like the education system in the country, like the healthcare system in the country. There's parts of our government that run those things. But then what they did was they just enabled all of these capabilities within our country to be weaponized. And he did it for 8 years. And as I said the other day, in a post I put out, the deep state plan was really 8 years of Obama, 8 years of Hillary. Mm-hmm. And the strategy was if Hillary didn't win, as we know what Peter Strzok and his lover, Lisa Page, talked about when they talked about, we have an insurance plan if he wins, right? Well, the insurance plan was kicked in, and Peter Strzok is part of this. And I venture to say that there's going to be some people inside that are going to be, that they are going to feel the pressure of going to prison. And when they do, they'll start to sing, like they say, right, in the movies. They're going to sing. And so I do believe that we have two things here, two big lines. One is, of course, what Tulsi Gabbard just exposed to the to the world and to the American people, which is the greatest crime in the history of the United States of America. Absolutely the greatest crime, a crime so bad that the majority of Americans, in many cases, still can't believe it, that a coup would actually occur here in the United States of America by one president against another president. But that's in fact what we now are facing. Looking back, this other line is, what was the responsibilities of the GOP to do anything? A GOP, by the way, that was in the majority while President Trump was going through the initial stages and the selection of Mueller as an investigator to investigate this thing. You were just talking about Andrew Weissman, who everybody knows is somebody who cannot be trusted. This guy has ruined the justice system in America because of his own behavior from past cases that he was involved in. So this is by far the greatest crime committed in the history of the United States of America. Thank God, a former Democrat, now director of national intelligence, someone who saw the light, had the guts and the courage and the commitment to work really hard. And she took a bruising beating, Benny, as you know, in the media over the last 6 months. I mean, there was so much negativity about Tulsi Gabbard this and Tulsi Gabbard that. And what did Tulsi do? She quietly performed. And she has now exposed the greatest crime in the history of the United States of America. And now we've got to make it right for the American people.
General, I know that you're at the airport, and I deeply appreciate your time on this program. And so hopefully we have time for a follow-up or two. Yeah. I'll get to them very quickly. Here's your name in the actual documents. This is James Comey saying that he put a mark on you and that he's planning on trying to corner you and to rip you away from President Trump and to destroy you at the National Security Council. He's also admitted to this on camera. There's a separate moment where James Comey was asked about this, and he said so. If we could just play it muted, but he basically, we don't have the time to play it. He basically says, yes, I attacked Flynn because there weren't enough protections of the new administration. I was taking advantage of a nascent Trump administration. Exactly. Now, what's your commentary on this now that it's all the guts have been ripped out and the black and white is out in the open?
Yeah, that man right there needs to go to prison. And there's a couple of others around him that were part of this coup, this attempted coup against the United States of America. We cannot have this happen in our country again. And the only way, Benny, the only way that we will not allow this to happen again for many, many years, maybe 100 years, is by holding these people accountable. And the guy that your audience is looking at right there, they call him the Cardinal, James Comey, former director of the FBI, totally disgraced himself, but he participated in what is essentially the greatest crime in the history of the United States of America. So these people have got to be held to account. People are going to expect movement very quickly by this administration, by the Trump administration. We don't need years worth of investigations. All the evidence is right there. And thank God for Tulsi Gabbard.
Final question, General. Since you're a military man, you rose to the highest conceivable ranks within the military and within the civilian structure in the White House. Your credentials are impeccable. When Stephen Miller calls this a seditious conspiracy, when Tulsi Gabbard calls it a traitorous act, treason against our country, those seem like legal terms, but also really military terms. And since Barack Obama was the commander in chief, what angle would it be to go at this from a military perspective? Perhaps you could explain, what does treason and seditious conspiracy mean from a military perspective? Would you advise them to go after them on those terms?
I would. I absolutely would. I would advise them to go after on those terms and make sure that they have them locked in tight in terms of the legalities. But what I want people to understand is, after World War II, we had the Nuremberg trials, and there was a lot of people that were found guilty. And because they stood at when they got on the stand, they said, well, I was just following orders. Well, Jim Clapper, John Brennan, Jim Comey, Susan Rice, Sally Yates, and many others, Lisa Monaco, many, many others, you're not going to get away with it. If Barack Obama directed you, and it appears that he did, this is very intentional. This 8 December 2016 meeting that they had, where it looks like, which was something that was not on my radar, Benny. So this is a new piece of evidence that Tulsi has exposed. that to me, in addition to some of the other critical criminal evidence that has been discovered, I think that they're going to have to look at conspiracy, treason, traitorous activities by some of these people, and particularly starting at the very top, and that would be Barack Obama. They were ready to convict and throw Donald Trump in prison for the rest of his life, Benny. And so all bets are off when it comes to immunity. There's no immunity for this president, not President Obama, for what he did. So
could you have a military there? Could you have a military tribunal for the commander in chief?
I don't know, but it ought to be explored. Benny, it should be explored.
General Flynn, who has been so right on this, who has fought and actually General Flynn absorbed the first arrows in this attack, actually, and was the first victim, frankly, of all of this. And it must be a profound moment. Everyone follow General Flynn. I know he has a flight to catch, but any parting thoughts? And here, by the way, is pardon of innocence, if you wish to read the full story. But any parting thoughts, General?
Yeah, I think everybody just needs to stay focused. Support President Trump, and we've got to make sure that we demand accountability from the government that is supposed to serve us. Right? It doesn't serve itself; it serves us. So that's really where I'm at.
Yes. Godspeed, General, and we look forward to having you on regularly to talk through this with our audience.
Absolutely.
Godspeed.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ben.